Sandton, the richest square mile in Africa. Next door, Alexandra, home to 500,000 poor people. Sandton and Alex have come to symbolize the deep divide in the country. How do middle-class professionals feel about their tax money being used to address inequality?
Well, why should everybody be equal? Why must we force people to be equal? I mean, people have different aspirations. Not everybody has the aspiration to be the CEO of a big company.
Dewald Pieterse works for a large engineering firm. He believes taxes are an unfair burden on the middle class.
The people who actually pay the taxes are the economically productive people. Instead of having the money to pay for their children's education, government takes that money and distributes it, creates people who are dependent on that, and so you have a worsening cycle.
Ayabonga Tawe is an economics graduate. He argues that poor people also pay taxes and that their contributions to the economy are undervalued. He rejects Dewald's view that tax is an unfair burden on hard-working middle-class families.
I've never accepted this hard work argument as it relates to the creation of wealth and the distribution of that wealth. Because for me, it says someone who wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning in Orange Farm to get to a job at 7 in the morning in Parktown, and then leaves that job at about 6 o'clock to actually get to their house at 9 o'clock. For me, that person works hard. But in terms of the outcomes of the wealth, not enough wealth is distributed to those people.
We met with a group of middle-class professionals in a Sandton restaurant to discuss taxes and the elections. Dewald and Ayabonga joined us. I always say to people that I'm more afraid of SARS than I am of the SAPS. Because those guys are really good at their job, right? And I accept the fact that got to pay my tax so that hospitals are built. But are we getting value for money?
I am tired of my tax money being wasted. There is so much corruption in healthcare, hospitals are a disaster, people die because they don't get basic medication. So I'd like to see the government using the tax money properly and actually putting corrupt people in jail.
So should we be giving new parties like the EFF, for example, a chance then? You know what they say about a new broom?
Right. Well, I think everyone has to look at a complete package, and they need to look at credible solutions and long-term sustainable policies as well, and not once-off hype.
All right. Dewald, what do you think of the EFF's policies? I mean, nationalize the mines, nationalize our banks, land redistribution without compensation.
Well, I think the EFF didn't learn the lessons of the USSR. You know, Russia was a failed communist state that broke up.
Maybe they've learned the lessons of Norway. Maybe they've learned the lessons of Chile, for example. There are other states that have actually nationalized and are wealthy today and have a higher per capita income.
Well, as Margaret Thatcher used to say, she said, you know, socialism works until you run out of somebody else's money.
I think, Sigi, we need to dispel two things here, even in the economic history of the world in its entirety. And it's the argument that says state intervention in the economy has never worked anywhere, and that is wrong, even in the US, even in countries in the world that actually advocate a free market system. If you look at their own economic histories, you find a lot of state protectionism of their own industry, and that is how they managed to expand into the global economy.
But isn't that what we're hearing, really, as well, from our ruling party? They seem to talk left but act right.
If you look at the historic record of the ruling party since 1990, when they came back into the country, you've seen rhetorically a lot of leftist sort of rhetoric and slogans, but in terms of policy, at the core, it's been centre-right in a sense.
This country has made the most significant strides post-colonialism that any other African country has ever made.
Mukobe Masuta is a graduate in economic geography and the founder of the Tusani Educational Foundation. He rejects the idea that our tax money is being wasted.
President Zuma, in terms of the socio-economic upliftment of South Africans, is the best president since 1994. I can tell you with health, with the HIV and AIDS policy and life expectancy, I can tell you about building the largest power stations in the entire world in order to address the mess that came with for example,
all of that started in 2009. Are you saying that there wasn't groundwork put in place since 1994?
Not at all. Not at all. President Zuma has put more students into FET colleges than Mandela and Mbeki combined. As a young professional from rural Venda, I'm sitting here with you having gotten 3 free degrees under this presidency. It's very difficult to convince me that all is doom and gloom.
There's something very important that has been mentioned, the idea that I have 3 degrees, because that's exactly where our country has gone. It's to this I have because of this government, and therefore I owe it loyalty. Because there's only a few amount of us who have actually succeeded. A lot of people that have actually are watching us. Look at us driving our fancy cars, living in Sandton, and it looks like it's a great story to tell. But so many people have been left behind, and I think for me, the creativity is how do we then bring everybody along with us?
For as long as the poor remain with us, the rich will never sleep. I'm voting EFF. I've got 3 degrees and I'm busy with my PhD, but still not enough people are educated in our country. The ANC has actually failed us. The majority of black people are still living in poverty.
What proof do you have that as a young professional, like what is there to convince me that I should vote for EFF?
I'm a professional, I earn a good salary, but at the same time, we just bonded in debt. We just have access to credit, and that does not mean we are actually living a good life. So with EFF, obviously, they're going to try and reduce the bond rate.
So you, as an auditor, is saying that the EFF can reduce the bond rate. Does that sound realistic?
Our parties all promise us the big things. But what we are seeing now is a failure of management. We have one large opposition, and that is most likely where I'm going to put my vote, because they are most likely to put current management out and get us new management in, and we give them a chance. If they fail us, we replace them as well.
You look at the likes of your opposition, your DA, and the new kid in the block, your EFF. They don't stand a chance, actually. Yes, there are challenges, and probably us who are within the ANC, we will try and step in and try and fix the ANC.
I'll be voting for the party which would leave me the biggest chunk of my salary, so that instead of redistributing the money on my behalf as they see fit, will allow me to vote for the best value for money in every sector of life.
I think the president of the country always says, "Inde lendlela." It started in 1912 and it's 2014 now, 102 years later. We still haven't dealt with the primary question in this country, which is around the material distribution in the country. And come 7th of May, I am nailing my red colors to the mast for an organization that is primarily concerned with dealing with the material inequality in this country.
Personally, having heard everything, I am still convinced and persuaded that the ANC is still the best alternative. There are challenges, there are contradictions, but those are parts of the growth process.
South Africans have a lot of conversations about political parties and not enough conversations on our responsibility for creating an environment where we feel so disempowered. And so I hope South Africans really think about how we make democracy live past elections.
As the sun sets on the first Zuma presidency, how will the middle class vote?
Perhaps the one issue that unites young professionals is that South Africa needs good managers, people who can be trusted and held accountable. As for which party offers that, it seems the answer is more elusive than at any time since 1994. Sikim Gabadeli, Sandton.
Know more. ENCA.com